The grand hall of the alien baron's palace was filled with laughter, but it was not the laughter of kindness. It was the laughter of cruelty. Tall aliens with glittering eyes and sharp fangs leaned back on golden chairs. They mocked, they whispered, they clapped at their leader's wicked sense of humor. The alien baron sat at the highest throne, his long cloak dragging across the polished floor. His voice was deep and filled with arrogance. In front of him stood a single human. A guest among predators, the man was calm, dressed in simple clothes, his eyes scanning every detail. He was surrounded by aliens who thought humans were weak, strange creatures, good only for amusement. The baron raised his hand, and two guards brought forward a small floating chair. Upon it sat a young alien girl, her body limp, her face pale, her legs unmoving. She was beautiful, but broken. Her hands lay still on her lap, her head tilted to the side as if even the weight of her crown of hair was too heavy. The baron's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Here, human," he said, his voice echoing across the hall. "Take my daughter. She is worthless, paralyzed, useless to my house. Perhaps she will amuse you. Perhaps you will weep for such a pitiful thing." The aliens around him roared with laughter, slamming their fists against tables, their eyes glowing with delight at the humiliation. To them it was the perfect joke, a test to see how a human would react. The human man did not laugh. He did not even flinch. His gaze rested on the girl, quiet, thoughtful. The girl's eyes lifted for a brief moment, weak, trembling, but within them burned a spark, a soft light no one else cared to see. The crowd jeered, "Take her, take the broken doll, show us how weak humans are." The man stepped forward, his boots echoing softly. He reached the floating chair, kneeling slightly so his eyes met hers. His voice was low, steady. "What is your name?" A hush fell. The aliens leaned forward, waiting for her to stutter, waiting for silence, waiting for another moment to laugh. The girl's lips barely moved. No sound at first, then a faint whisper escaped. "Lyra." The man nodded once. "Lyra," he repeated, firm, respectful, as if the name itself carried power. The baron chuckled, shaking his head. "You are wasting your breath, human. She cannot walk, she cannot fight, she cannot rule. She is nothing but a burden, even to me." Still, the man did not answer the baron. Instead, he extended his hand toward the girl, not forcing, not rushing, simply offering, slowly, painfully. The girl's finger twitched, the smallest motion, yet it was real. It was hers. The hall erupted with laughter again. "Look!" She twitched. "The doll tries to live." But the human's eyes sharpened. He saw what they did not. Her effort was not the weakness they mocked. It was strength, a hidden storm behind fragile walls. He whispered to her again, "I see you." The girl's breathing grew shallow, her eyes glistened. No one had spoken to her like that before, not even her father, not even her caretakers. For the first time in years, she felt seen. The baron waved his hand impatiently. "Take her. Away, human. She is yours. Do whatever you wish. Just be quick. I tire of this game." The guards pushed the floating chair toward him, sneering. Their eyes filled with disgust. One of them whispered, "You will regret this, human. She will drain you until you break." The man ignored them. He placed his hand on the side of the chair, steadying it, his face unreadable. But inside his mind, thoughts sharpened like blades. This was no joke. This was no burden. This was a chance, a mystery, a test. As he led the chair out of the hall, the echoes of cruel laughter followed, the aliens amused by their leader's joke. But the human did not hear them. His focus was only on Lyra. Her lips trembled, trying to form words, but her body betrayed. Her still, he leaned close. "Do not rush, take your time." Her eyes flickered with something fragile, something fierce. "Why not laugh?" she whispered, every word costing her pain. The man shook his head, his voice quiet but unshakable. "Because I see what they don't." The palace doors closed behind them, cutting off the cruel laughter, leaving only silence. The night outside was cold, the stars above distant and sharp. The human stood by the floating chair, gazing at the girl who had been given to him as a cruel joke. But he was not laughing. He was watching. He was waiting. And deep inside, he knew one thing. This was no gift, this was destiny, and in her eyes, weak and trembling, he saw the truth. She was not broken. She was hidden, waiting for someone to believe, waiting for someone to see her true potential. The game of the Baron had only just begun, but the human was no player of jokes. He was a player of fate, and fate had just placed Lyra into his hands. The cruel gift was the beginning of a legend. The night was colder than the human expected. The palace torches burned behind him. But once he crossed the gates with Lyra, the laughter of the aliens was gone. Only the sound of the floating chair humming in the dark air remained. He guided her down the stone path toward the guest quarters they had given him, his hand steady on the chair. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes followed the stars. They trembled as if each light above reminded her of something she had lost. Inside the chamber, he lit a small fire. Warmth slowly filled the air. The alien girl looked fragile in the glow, her hair like silver threads falling over her shoulders. She could not move much, but her eyes searched the room, curious, silent, waiting. The human knelt beside her, speaking softly. "You are safe, here." His voice carried no mockery, only calm. His hands worked to adjust the chair, making sure she was comfortable. Lyra's lips parted. She whispered one broken word. "Why?" "Safe." He paused, looking at her. The question was heavy, not because of the sound, but because of the meaning. She had lived her life without safety, without comfort. He answered slowly. "Because no one deserves to live as a joke." Her eyes filled with something faint, a flicker of emotion buried deep under years of humiliation. He offered her water, lifting a small cup to her lips. She drank slowly, painfully, but she drank. When the cup was empty, her voice rasped. "Father," laughed, always. The man listened, not interrupting. Every word was a stone pulled out from the silence that trapped her. "Every day," she continued, her voice like the wind through broken glass. "He said, I am nothing." Her eyes turned away as if ashamed to repeat it. The man clenched his jaw, anger flashing briefly in his eyes, but his voice remained steady. "You are not nothing." The words seemed impossible to her. She stared at him, uncertain if it was kindness, pity, or truth. "How? No?" He leaned closer. "Because I saw your eyes. They are alive." For the first time, her lips curved slightly. It was not a smile yet, more like the shadow of one, weak but real. The night passed slowly. He stayed awake, listening to her shallow breaths, watching the small movements she made, her fingers twitching, her eyes darting as if fighting her own body. He realized she was not paralyzed in spirit. Her will was stronger than her broken body. At dawn, when light filtered into the chamber, he found her awake, her eyes locked on him, as if she had been waiting. "Human," she whispered, struggling. "Name?" He hesitated, then answered. "Daniel." Her lips moved again, forming his name with difficulty. Neil." The sound was weak, but it carried something powerful. It was trust. From that moment, their bond began. Daniel spent the day studying her condition. He brought tools from his small pack, strange devices humans used for healing and support. The aliens mocked such things, but to Daniel they were weapons of hope. He strapped a small brace to her wrist, gently guiding her fingers. Her hand shook violently, but she managed to grip his palm for a second before falling back. Sweat glistened. On her forehead, her lips trembled. "I can't." Daniel shook his head. "No, Lyra, you can. 1 second is enough today. Tomorrow, maybe 2. She stared at him, confused. "Tomorrow?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, because I am not leaving." Her eyes widened. No one had ever said that to her before, Every caretaker, every guard, every relative saw her as a burden to pass away. But this human, this outsider, was choosing to stay. That night, she whispered again, her voice breaking, "Why, help?" Daniel leaned back, looking into the fire, then answered simply, "Because you are more than they see." The silence stretched between them, but it was not the silence of emptiness anymore. It was heavy, meaningful, like soil covering, a seed waiting to grow. Outside the palace, rumors spread quickly. Aliens laughed in taverns, telling each other the human was wasting his time. "He treats her like she is alive, like she matters. What a fool," they jeered. But in the quiet of the chamber, Lyra moved her fingers again, slightly stronger, slightly steadier. Daniel's eyes lit up. "Good," he whispered. "Very good." Her lips trembled, her whisper barely there. "Father never said good." Daniel froze, his chest tight. Then he leaned forward, his voice firm. "Then remember this, Lyra. You are good. You will always be good enough." Her eyes closed, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Not from sadness, but from something new, something strange. Hope. The cruel gift was no longer just a burden, it was beginning to change. The silent daughter was no longer only silent. She was learning to speak, to move, to believe. And in the shadows of the palace, where spies listened and reported every detail, a whisper began to spread. The human is doing something with the Baron's broken daughter. She is not so broken anymore. It was the beginning of a storm none of them expected. The next days inside the guest chamber were quiet, but not empty. Daniel stayed close to Lyra, always watching, always patient. The alien servants peeked through the door at times, whispering to each other, mocking softly. The human feeds her like a child. He talks to her as if she listens, poor fool. He does not know she is broken. But Daniel ignored them. He had seen something the first night, a spark in her eyes, and he could not forget it. Every morning, he adjusted the small braces guiding her trembling fingers. Every evening he spoke with her, even when her replies were only one word or a whisper, and slowly she began to change. One afternoon, as the firelight danced across the walls, Daniel placed a small wooden block in her hand. Her fingers quivered, slipping again and again. "I can't," she gasped, her voice breaking. Daniel leaned closer. "Yes, you can. Just 1 second. Nothing more." Her teeth clenched, her fragile body straining, her hand closed slightly. The block stayed for 2 heartbeats before it fell. She collapsed back, exhausted, but her eyes shone. Daniel smiled. "You did it." For a long moment she stared at him, unsure whether to believe him. Then her lips formed a weak word. "Again." Daniel's chest tightened. He nodded. "Yes, again." For hours she tried, failing, succeeding for seconds, failing again, but never stopping. By nightfall, her fingers managed to hold the block for 5 full breaths. When she finally fell, asleep, Daniel sat back, whispering to himself, "The spark is real." The next day, something unexpected happened. Lyra whispered to him, "Listen." Her eyes darted toward the stone wall, her voice urgent though weak. Daniel froze, at first hearing nothing, then faintly, the sound of a scrape, a soft scratch, like claws against stone. He rose silently, moving closer. The noise stopped. When he returned to her side, she whispered, "Spies. Always here." Daniel's eyes narrowed. She knew. She had always known. Trapped in her chair but never blind. Her mind had been listening while others mocked. "How long?" he asked quietly. Her lips trembled. "Years. I hear everything." Daniel realized then. Her silence had not been emptiness. It had been a cage. But inside, her mind was alive, sharper than blades. That night, she told him more, her voice breaking. Her words slow but steady. "Father's counsel and plotting. They think he grows weak. I hear plans, names." Daniel leaned forward, heart racing. She was not just a broken daughter, she was a hidden witness, a keeper of secrets no one believed she could hold. You remember them all? He asked, his voice low. She blinked slowly. Every word. The following day, Daniel tested her, writing names on parchment. She nodded weakly, repeating them with effort. Every name was correct, every detail precise. Daniel whispered, Lyra, your mind is perfect. Her lips curved faintly. Not quite a smile, but close. But body, broken. He shook his head. Your body is only one part of you. Your mind can rule an empire. She turned her eyes away, as if afraid of the thought. They laugh. Always. Daniel's voice hardened. Let them laugh one day, you will be the one they fear. At the evening meal, the Baron summoned Daniel to the grand hall again, laughter already echoing. The aliens wanted more entertainment, wanted to see how far the human would go with his cruel gift. The Baron leaned forward, eyes glimmering with mockery. Tell us, human, has my daughter amused you? Does she cry at night? Or perhaps you cry for her? The crowd burst into laughter, cups slamming against tables. Daniel stood calm, his expression unreadable. Your daughter is stronger than you think, he said, his tone steady, his words like steel. The laughter grew louder. The Baron chuckled. Stronger. She cannot walk, cannot speak without choking. What strength is that? Daniel's eyes flickered, but he did not argue. Instead, he bowed slightly. Perhaps one day you will see. The Baron waved dismissively. Take her back, human. Waste your time if you wish. The galaxy laughs at fools. Daniel returned to Lyra's chamber, and as he entered, her eyes locked on his, weak but sharp. They laughed again? She whispered. He nodded, kneeling beside her. Yes, but they don't see what I see. Her hand twitched, brushing against his sleeve. What? See? Daniel leaned close, his voice firm. I see the spark inside you. The one they will regret. Ignoring, for the first time, Lyra's lips curved fully, a faint but true smile. Then, don't stop. Daniel's heart burned with resolve. I won't. Outside, the palace buzzed with mockery, but inside the quiet chamber, a new power was being born. The hidden spark inside the silent daughter had been found, and Daniel knew one truth: if nurtured, that spark could set fire to the entire empire. The palace halls grew colder with every passing day, but Daniel's chamber felt different. It was no longer just a room for a broken girl. It was turning into a place of change, of hidden strength. Each morning Daniel adjusted the braces on Lyra's arms, his hands steady, his patience endless. The servants watched from the doorway, whispering, The human wastes his time, she will never move. But Daniel never looked at them. His eyes were only for Lyra. Lyra tried, her thin fingers trembling, her arms heavy as stone. But each time she failed, Daniel whispered. Again, his voice never harsh, always calm, always. Sure, one morning after hours of effort, her hand closed fully around a cup, not for 1 second, but for 3. The cup slipped after, spilling water on the floor. The servants laughed, but Daniel smiled. That is victory. Lyra's lips trembled. Victory. For a drop? He nodded. Yes, because yesterday you held nothing. Today you held for 3 breaths, tomorrow maybe more. Her chest rose and fell, her eyes shimmering. She whispered, You believe too much. Daniel leaned close, his tone firm. No, Lyra, I believe just enough. As days passed, Daniel brought small human tools from his pack. Wooden blocks, ropes, simple machines, 2 aliens. These were toys. But to Daniel, they were weapons of progress. He strapped the rope around her wrist, guiding her arm upward. Lyra gasped, her body shaking. But for a brief moment her arm lifted against gravity. She fell back, breathless, tears forming at the edges of her eyes. Hurts. Daniel wiped the sweat from her forehead, whispering, Pain means your body is fighting, and fighting means it is alive. Her eyes closed, but her lips curved faintly. Alive. She repeated as if testing the word. At night, Daniel spoke with her, Not of pain, but of hope. He told her stories of humans who rose from nothing, of soldiers who fought without weapons, of children who grew into leaders. Lyra listened silently, her eyes wide, her breathing slow. "Why, tell me?" she asked one evening, her voice weak. "Because you need to know," Daniel said. "You are not forgotten, you are not useless, you are waiting, training, becoming." Her gaze lingered, on the fire, the flames reflecting in her silver eyes. "But," Father said, "always waste." Daniel's voice hardened. "Your father is blind, Lyra, but I am not." The palace began to notice. Whispers spread through corridors. The human makes her move her arms. She drinks water herself now. Impossible! The aliens laughed, but their laughter carried unease. One night, as Daniel adjusted the braces, Lyra whispered something new. "They watch. Always. I hear them." Daniel's head turned sharply. "Where?" Her eyes flickered toward the ceiling. "Above. Behind wall. Footsteps when you leave." Daniel's jaw tightened. He realized spies had been reporting every progress. But that also meant news of her strength was reaching the Baron. The next day, the Baron summoned Daniel again. The grand hall filled with sneers. The Baron leaned back on his throne, his eyes gleaming with mockery. "So, human, do you play healer now? Do you think you can fix what the gods have broken?" The aliens roared with laughter, but Daniel did not flinch. "She is not broken," he answered calmly. The laughter stopped for a brief moment, silence heavy in the hall, then louder laughter erupted. The Baron's voice thundered. "Not broken, she cannot even walk." Daniel bowed slightly. "Not yet." The Baron's smile faded for a second, replaced with a flicker of curiosity. Then he waved his hand. "Take her back, fool. Train your broken doll. Waste your breath. One day you will see I was right." That night back in the chamber, Lyra asked, "They laughed again?" Daniel nodded, kneeling beside her. "Yes, but every laugh makes me stronger." Her hand twitched, brushing against his wrist. "And me?" He took her hand gently. "Every laugh makes you greater, Lyra, because you rise while they fall." Her lips parted, and this time, her whisper carried no weakness, only resolve. Then, rise more. The training grew harsher. Daniel built a frame to hold her upright, supporting her body with ropes. She gasped in pain, her legs trembling, useless. But for a brief moment she stood, her body swaying, her eyes wide with terror and wonder. Standing?" she whispered, voice cracking. Daniel's eyes burned, his voice steady. "Yes, Lyra, you are standing." She collapsed into his arms after, her body limp, but her face shining with tears and laughter mixed. "Never before," she whispered. "Never," Daniel whispered back. "It is only the beginning." Outside the palace walls, soldiers mocked, servants whispered, nobles sneered, but none of them could erase what had happened inside the chamber. The forgotten daughter had stood even for a moment, and in that moment Daniel knew the world would never be the same again. The training of the forgotten had begun, and soon the galaxy would remember her name. The chamber no longer felt like a prison. It felt alive. Every day carried the sound of Lyra's strained breathing, Daniel's calm instructions, and the small victories no one else believed in. Her body was still weak, but her mind was beginning to burn brighter than the fires in the hearth. Daniel noticed it each time she spoke. Her whispers were sharper, her words more deliberate, as if years of silence had only sharpened her thoughts instead of dulling them. One morning, as Daniel adjusted the brace on her wrist, Lyra whispered, "They fight soon." Daniel froze. "Who?" Her eyes flickered toward the wall. "Council, against Father. They wait." "For signal." Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "You heard them?" Lyra nodded weakly. "Always. I hear. I remember." She closed her eyes and repeated names, dates, secret words the council had spoken when they thought she was nothing more than broken flesh. Daniel wrote them down quickly. his hand steady but his heart racing. When she finished, he whispered, "Lyra, you could save him, or you could end him." Her lips parted, her whisper fragile. "I can choose?" Daniel's eyes met hers. "Yes, for the first time, the choice is yours." Over the next days, Daniel began to test her memory. He asked her to recall patterns, numbers, orders. She answered each one perfectly. He set puzzles. She solved them, with strategies that surprised even him. "You think faster than generals I've known," he said one evening, a faint smile on his face. Her lips curved slightly. "But no one listens." He shook his head. "Then we will make them listen." Her strength in body was still fragile, but her strength of mind began to show in other ways. One evening, Daniel brought a map of the palace, placing it before her. "Tell me, where they watch from?" Lyra studied the map with sharp eyes, whispering slowly, "Here, here, and here." She pointed with trembling fingers, struggling but precise. Daniel followed her directions the next night. And she was right. Guards lingered in shadows where she had said. Spies waited behind walls she had marked. He returned to her chamber, eyes wide. "You see everything." Her faint smile returned. "They forget. I am here." Word of her progress began to spread faster. Servants whispered of her standing, of her speaking more clearly. Nobles scoffed, but their eyes carried unease. The cruel joke was slipping from their hands, turning into something none of them expected. One night the Baron himself entered her chamber, his towering form filling the doorway, his eyes gleaming with suspicion. "So, daughter," he rumbled, "is it true? You rise from your chair now?" Lyra's body stiffened, her lips trembling, but before she could speak, Daniel stepped forward. "She is learning. She is stronger than you believe." The Baron's gaze turned sharp. "You speak boldly, human, perhaps too boldly." Daniel did not flinch. "I only speak truth." The Baron laughed coldly, shaking his head. "Truth? She has no future, no throne. She is a shadow of my shame." Lyra's eyes shimmered, tears threatening, but Daniel placed his hand gently on hers, steadying her. "Shadows can still hide fire," he whispered, loud enough for the Baron to hear. The Baron's expression tightened for a heartbeat. Then he turned, cloak sweeping the floor. "Play your games, human. In the end, she will still fall." And he left, his laughter echoing behind. That night, Lyra whispered through her tears, "I only shame to him." Daniel's voice was firm. "No, Lyra. You are the weapon he fears. He just doesn't know it yet." Her eyes widened. "Weapon?" Daniel nodded. "Your mind, your memory, your will. Those are stronger than blades, stronger than armies." Lyra's hand trembled. She pressed it weakly against his wrist. "Then, teach me more." And Daniel did. Every night he spoke of strategy, of human wars and victories, of leaders who rose from nothing, and Lyra absorbed every word, building her thoughts into something sharper than steel. Weeks passed, her whispers grew clearer, her movements steadier, and one evening when Daniel returned from the market square, Lyra looked at him with determination. "They plan to kill him soon." Daniel froze. "Your father?" She nodded slowly, her voice steadier than before. "Council tired. They think he weak. They plan. Feast in 2 nights." Daniel's eyes darkened. This was no small detail. This was the beating heart of palace politics. Lyra had been invisible all her life, but now her voice carried the power to shape futures. He knelt before her, speaking firmly. "Then this is your time, Lyra, the time to rise." Her lips trembled, but she whispered with newfound strength, "Then I will rise." Outside, the palace lights glimmered in the night. Nobles laughed, servants gossiped, guards sharpened blades. No one cared for the paralyzed daughter in her silent chamber. But inside, her mind had risen above her broken body, and with Daniel by her side, Lyra was no longer forgotten. She was preparing to change everything. The rise of her mind had begun, and soon the galaxy would learn her name. The night of the feast arrived. The palace glittered with lights. Alien nobles filled the grand hall, their laughter sharp, their goblets spilling with wine. The Baron sat tall on his throne, his smile wide, but in his eyes there was unease. Daniel stayed in the shadows near the chamber doors, waiting, listening. He knew what Lyra had whispered days ago. The council planned to strike tonight, and if they succeeded, chaos would consume the palace. Inside her chamber, Lyra sat upright, her thin body trembling, her mind burning with focus. Her voice whispered through the small device Daniel had built for her, each word clearer now. They will move. When the music stops, Daniel nodded, gripping the dagger hidden under his cloak. Then we must be ready. Lyra's eyes gleamed. Not us, me. He froze, staring at her fragile frame. You? Her lips curved faintly, her voice steady despite weakness. Yes, Daniel. I know their names, their lies, their secrets. They fear truth more than blades. In the hall, the music played, drums echoing against stone. Then suddenly, silence. The council members rose from their seats, their eyes sharp, their hands brushing, hidden weapons. The Baron's laughter died on his lips. He looked around suspiciously. What is this? Before the council could speak, the chamber doors opened and all heads turned. Lyra entered, pushed gently on her floating chair, Daniel at her side, but it was not Daniel who caught their eyes. It was her, the forgotten daughter, her head lifted, high, her silver eyes burning like fire, her voice echoing through the device Daniel had built. Enough, she said, the single word slicing through the hall. The nobles gasped, whispers rising, some laughed. The broken girl speaks? A doll, with a voice? But Lyra's gaze did not falter. I am no doll, she declared, her words trembling but clear. I am your witness. And your end? The council members froze, their faces pale. She spoke their secrets aloud one by one, exposing names, dates, meetings, their plans to overthrow her father. Every word undeniable, every word a knife. The Baron's eyes widened, rage and shock mixing on his face. How do you know this? Lyra's lips curved slightly. Because while you laughed, I listened. The hall erupted in chaos, nobles shouting, guards drawing weapons, council members stammering. Some tried to deny, but Lyra's voice crushed them, repeating their words exactly as they had spoken in hidden rooms. The Baron rose from his throne, his voice thundered. Seize them! The guards moved swiftly, dragging traitors from their seats, their screams echoing. The nobles fell, silent fear spreading like wildfire. Lyra's eyes locked on her father, weak but steady. Do you see now? I am not your shame. I am your strength. The Baron stared at her, his mouth opening but no words coming. He had mocked her for years, called her worthless, and yet tonight, his throne stood because of her. Later, when the hall was cleared, Daniel wheeled Lyra back to her chamber, her body exhausted, sweat glistening on her pale skin, but her eyes burned brighter than ever. You changed everything, Daniel whispered, kneeling beside her. Her lips trembled, her whisper soft but filled with power. I chose, Daniel. I chose to rise. He smiled faintly, pride in his eyes. Yes, and they will never laugh at you again. But outside the chamber, shadows moved. Not all enemies were gone. Not all threats erased. In dark corners of the palace, whispers hissed. The broken girl is dangerous now. She must not live long. The turning point had come. The joke had become a weapon. The forgotten daughter had become a force. And Daniel knew. This was only the beginning. That night, as the fire burned, "Lo," Lyra whispered to him, "they will come." Again, Daniel nodded, his hand resting on hers. Let them come. They don't know what you've become. Her eyes glistened, her voice almost a vow. I will never be silent again. The turning point had arrived, and with it, a storm that would shake the empire. The Baron's cruel gift had turned into his greatest fear, and his daughter, once mocked and forgotten, had become the key to a future none of them could control. The palace no longer laughed. After the feast, the halls were silent. Nobles walked with lowered heads, guards tightened their grip on weapons, and whispers spread like fire. The broken daughter was not broken anymore. Lyra sat in her chamber, her body weak but her eyes alive. Daniel stood near the window watching soldiers march outside. He knew the council's defeat was not the end. New enemies would come, because power never stayed still. That evening, the Baron entered her chamber, for the first time in years without mockery. His steps were heavy, his gaze uncertain. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Daughter," he said, his voice low, almost human. Lyra's lips trembled. Her device carried her words clearly. "You never called me that." The Baron's jaw tightened, shame flickering in his eyes. "You saved my throne." Her gaze did not soften, her voice steady. "I did not save you. I saved myself. I saved what you were too blind to protect." The Baron looked at Daniel, then back at her, but before he could reply, Lyra whispered, "If you wish to keep your crown, then you must keep me by your side, not as a shame, but as your heir." The words struck like thunder. Daniel held his breath, the Baron's eyes widened, fury and pride colliding. The nobles would never accept it, yet he knew he could not deny it, not after what she had done. Days turned into weeks. Lyra grew stronger, her fingers steadier, her voice clearer. Daniel built new devices. Metal frames, support rods, a chair she could control with the faintest movement of her hand. She practiced endlessly. One night, Daniel helped her stand again, her legs trembling, ropes holding her upright, her face pale with pain but her eyes blazing. "Do not let go," she whispered. "I won't," Daniel promised, his arms steady, and she took one step, small, broken, but real. Her lips parted, tears falling. "I walked." Daniel's chest tightened. "Yes, Lyra, you walked." That moment was more powerful than any crown, more powerful than any throne. The palace began to change. Whispers of her progress spread across the empire. Merchants in the market spoke her. Named soldiers in barracks argued whether the Baron's daughter could truly walk. In distant colonies, stories grew. The girl who was paralyzed now rises. The empire had laughed once, now it listened. But enemies listened too. In shadowed halls beyond the palace, rival houses conspired. If she rises, she will unite them. If she rules, she will destroy us. She must be stopped. Assassins were sent in the night, but Daniel was ready, his blade quick, his resolve iron. Lyra was no longer unguarded. She was protected not only by steel, but by faith. One night, after another attempt on her life failed, Lyra looked at Daniel, her eyes fierce. "They will never stop." Daniel nodded. "Then neither will we." Her lips curved faintly. "Together?" He smiled. "Always." The turning point became a new era. Lyra was no longer just the forgotten daughter. She became the voice of strategy, her words guiding her father's decisions, her plans saving armies, her memory unmasking traitors before. They struck one evening in the council hall. She sat beside the Baron, her body fragile but her voice unshakable. Nobles looked at her with awe and fear, and when she spoke, they listened. "The empire is not built by those who mock," she declared, her silver eyes burning. "It is built by those who endure." The nobles lowered their heads, silence filling the room. For the first time in history, the broken girl commanded the hall. Later, alone in her chamber, Lyra whispered to Daniel, "They see me now, but only because you saw me first." Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. "No, Lyra, I only reminded you of what you always were." Her lips trembled, her whisper soft but strong. "Then I will never be silent again. Never." He smiled, his hand resting on hers. "Good, because the galaxy is waiting for you." Outside the palace, beneath the endless stars, whispers spread across the worlds, not of the Baron, not of his council, but of the girl once given as a cruel joke, the girl who rose from silence, The forgotten daughter had revealed her true potential, and the galaxy would never laugh at her again. Instead, it would bow.